So, welcome everyone to the first virtual tasting here with the Growler guys, and along with our sponsoring breweries, Bent Paddle, Toppling Goliath, and Surly. We are happy to have you here. Thanks so much for joining in. So, we're going to get started here. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Growler guys. If you had a chance to see the intro video, we walked through the store. If you've never been here before, we've got 60 taps of craft beverages from beer, cider, mead, sangria, kombucha, CBD kombucha, root beer, some canned products as well. I walked us back into where I am sitting now in the event space that was brand new a couple of weeks before we all got locked in our houses. So unfortunately, there hasn't been too many events, but as soon as we get the go-ahead, we are going to move forward and have tons of events here. Please inquire, check it out, and get your date, whether it be later this summer or whatever it might be. Check us out, and we'll be ready to serve you here in our brand new event space. So again, thanks everybody for jumping on the YouTube Live. One thing I will mention is that we do have the ability to see comments right here live as they come in. So please feel free, drop a comment, let us know that you're here. And then if you have any questions for the brewers or reps or owners or anybody else that we might bring in, please put those in the comments. If you have the ability to upvote them on YouTube, certainly upvote them, and the questions with the most upvotes will then be the ones that we ask the brewers at the end of their sort of allowed time, and we will go from there. I hope everybody has gotten a chance to pour a beer as we settle in. Thanks so many different people, whether you're from Eau Claire, you're followers of the Growler guys on the Facebook page, or you're coming from far and wide. The internet's a great, wonderful thing. If you're followers of any of the great breweries, again, Surly, Bent Paddle, and Toppling Goliath, welcome. And if you've never been to the Growler guys, never even heard of us, we are a tap room that features great breweries like the three here from around the region, around the state, around the Midwest, around the world. We get international brews all the time as well. So without further ado then, we are going to kick it over to our first brewery, and that is going to be Bent Paddle. And we've got Maxwell, Magruder, and Tim, the head brewer, that are going to get started. All right, so let's kick it over to them. All right, you guys are ready to go, Tim.
What's up? Can you guys hear me? It's kind of loud in here. We're producing beer. Sound check?
We can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, welcome to Bent Paddle. Kind of midweek right now, so we're still brewing beer. Bent Paddle was founded in 2013. We opened our original tap room in 2013, and we were founded by 4 owners, 2 couples, Brian and Karen Tonis, and Colin and Laura Mullen. Yeah, they just got together, had an idea, wanted to start a brewery up in Duluth, Minnesota, and there's a lot of advantages of being up here. At that point in time, we didn't have many breweries up in the area, and we use crisp, clean Lake Superior water for our brewing process, so kind of having changes to start up. Brian actually he grew up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and Laura went to school in Madison, Wisconsin, and Colin and Laura actually got married in Brule, Wisconsin, so we got a little bit of a root system set down in the state of Wisconsin, so we're happy to have you guys here. We're going to do a little What's that?
Lost audio.
Are we still there?
Okay, I think we're back.
Can you guys hear me?
No. I think we're back live now. So I think we lost about 20 seconds there, Tim. If if you could roll it back 20 seconds or 30 seconds.
Roll it back about 20 seconds. Keep talking about the mill.
Yeah, no problem. So we have a silo outside that holds 60,000 pounds of our base malt. So base malt typically makes up, 80% of a beer, 60 to 80% of a beer. In our case, most of our beers are produced with raw two-row, which we get right down in Shakopee, Minnesota. We have a flow scale in the mill room where we type in the amount of grain we want, and we call for, and it comes through the system, goes through the mill, and what's that? Good to go. And we start, we mill it, goes into the grist case, and then from there, we put in our specialty malts into this hopper here, whether or not they're a super stack or bag malts. Here we have Pilsner malt. We're making a batch of our bent hop tomorrow, so we're just prepping. On any typically is operating 24 hours a day, ready to go in the grist case. From there, we can start the brewing process. Follow me. So right here is our 4-vessel, 30-barrel brew house. It's a DME system, which is out of Canada, but we pride ourselves in facility, all union labor, and all of this steel is North American steel. Originally, when we started brewing, we had 2 vessels before here. There's a mash mixer, lauter tun, whirlpool, and boil kettle. When we originally started, the 2 vessels we had were a combination mash lauter tun and a combination whirlpool boil kettle. And we've since expanded to the 4 vessels here, still 30 barrels. But this allows us to, kind of break out each process. It gives us efficiencies in the brewing process and allows us to be more efficient with time. So if you guys want to come up and check it up. This is the brew house at Ben Paddle. Max, if you want to pan around, this vessel over here is our mash mixer. This is where it all starts. So when we start brewing beer, we turn on our grist auger. The grain goes in here. We hydrate the grain and the water together, and the process begins. From there, what we do is the grain is then, the grain water slurry is sent over to the lauter tun. The lauter tun is basically a giant colander where we separate the grain and the now sugar water called wort, which is going to be food for the yeast during the fermentation process. During that separation period, we're sending the liquid wort over into the boil kettle. Boil kettle is going to be where primary hop additions happen. Basically, we kind of teach new brewers, there's kind of 3 times throughout the boil that you add hops during the process of the boil. Add hops at the beginning, that's going to be a lot for bitterness. It's going to lend more bitterness to the profile of the beer. If you add hops halfway through, that's going to be typically for flavors. And then if you add hops at the end of the boil, it'll be for more aromatics. And then also whirlpooling hops is going to be for flavor and aromatics. So once the boil is done, we do a 90-minute boil here at Ben Paddle. We send the wort that has now been, hop additions have happened. We send it over to the whirlpool. And the whirlpool does just what its namesake is. It's a big flat-bottomed vessel that spins around, and actually this way, spins around. We pump the wort in a tangential motion, and all the hops settle down to the bottom of the whirlpool in a hop cone. So basically we're separating the plant matter out of the wort at that point. From there, obviously this is a pretty dumbed down version of the brewing process, but we're running this process, all day long, about 4 to 5 days a week, and it takes, this cycle takes 4 times, so we call it turns. It takes 4 turns through each of these vessels to fill one of our 120 barrel fermenters. So barrel, which allows us to produce roughly 17,000 barrels of beer a year out of this facility. So if you guys want to follow me down, we'll go check out the cellar. Don't trip.
Oh, I almost stumbled there, Tim. Good thing this is virtual.
This is the bent paddle cellar. Once we produce the wort, this is where the fermentation takes place. Max, if you pan over here, you can see our heat exchangers. So the wort comes out of the kettle at boiling. We send it into the whirlpool. It drops a little bit in temperature, but it's still right up about boiling, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Once that process, the whirlpooling is complete, that separation of hops and wort, we send it through a redundant heat exchanger system where it is pumped through, and we actually send it through the heat exchangers. We have a glycol heat exchanger and a water heat exchanger. The water that is sent through in the opposite direction on the heat exchanger is then reclaimed into our hot liquor tank. And so then we reuse that water for the next mash in, if you will, or cleaning cycles here in the brew house or in the cellar. So once that happens, we're going to chill it down, depending on whether or not it's an ale or a lager, to right around where we ferment all of our ales, and right around 52 degrees Fahrenheit is where we're going to do most of our lagers. Obviously, these are all generalizations, but when we're producing beer, we need that beer to be the right temperature when the yeast goes in, so we don't kill it, or also just create a lag in the yeast's reproductive health. So the fermentation happens in here. Again, we have 4 90-barrel fermenters and 820 barrel fermenters. When we originally started brewing in this facility, we had 4 60-barrel fermenters. So none of those tanks are still are around anymore. We've sold them off, and as we've been able to grow over the years, just to create efficiencies in our process. This machine right here, we're actually doing a dry hop on a beer. So for ales, fermentation time is typically 3 to 7 days, depending on the yeast strain and the health of the yeast. 3 to 6 days maybe. And then for lagers, it's going to be 8 to 14 days. So once that process is done, a lot of beers that we do here at Bent Paddle, something we're kind of known for, is using hops. And we do use quite a bit of hops in beers like our Bent Hop, our Canoe Session Pale Ale, and then one of them we're going to taste tonight, which is our Portage number 3 Hazy. And we'll get more into that beer in a second, but one of those steps then after fermentation that we do is we do a dry hopping process. So traditionally, dry hopping would take place where you take hop pellets, and we use pelletized hops mostly in the industry here. They just break down better in the kettle when you're adding during the boil, but also they break down better, and you get a better utilization out of those hops when they're pelletized. So our fermenters are outfitted with a recirculation dry hop arm. So this arm goes all the way to the top of the vessel, and we recirculate the tank, the beer in the tank, through the machine here, the dry hop machine, and we add hops through a process called induction. So we basically pressurize a hop chamber that we can put our hops in, purge out the chamber of any oxygen, and then we open a ball valve to the line, and the pump here has a shearing head on it where it kind of munches all the hops up. So we get a better hop utilization, and it's just a safer process. We're also able to drop some time off of our entire dry hopping time, if you will. Before we did this, we would dump the hops in the traditional way into the top of the tank, and we'd allow a 4-day contact time. Now with this machine, we're able to do, we drop that down to 48 hours or 2 days. So we basically cut the dry hop period down in half. If you guys follow me out here, The next step in our process, once fermentation has completed, and we, you know, if the beer calls for a dry hop, typically a dry hop didn't count into it, but a dry hop would lend, you know, a lot of flavor and aromatics to a beer. So, you know, the reason we're going to do that is kind of boost that hop flavor in the beer. But once that's done, we'll crash the beers down. So we'll drop the temperature down to roughly 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the next step would be clarification. So what we did at the beginning of bent paddle, we would use a filter. We used a DE filter, or diatomaceous earth filter. It was a horizontal leaf filter that had a filter medium that the beer was forced through under pressure. That's all fine and good, but as we scaled, you know, I said we use a lot of hops. It kind of created issues with not only just getting a good enough yield through that filter, but also as you push beer through a filter medium, it strips flavors and aromatics. So us, just like I know Surly has one, we utilize a machine called the Centrifuge. Now, what's really cool about the Centrifuge is we are basically, you know, we're spinning a bowl that is roughly 800 pounds, and it has a series of plates compressed to, you know, roughly 300 psi inside of there, and we're spinning that at 6,800 RPMs. And what that allows us to do is basically create an artificial gravity, if you will. So when we're clarifying beer, the beer is in and going into this spinning bowl that's spinning extremely fast, and it's creating it's creating, you know, this particulate to be heavier, and so it's sending all the particles in the beer out. So the hop particulate, any yeast matter that's left over in the tank, and this is how we get nice, bright, clear bent paddle beer. So it's a throughput machine. The machine senses the inlet and outlet turbidity and basically allows us to manipulate the product to a point where it's nice, bright, but also package stable. And so every beer that we do here at Bent Paddle goes through this machine. It just allows us to, you know, have a lot of confidence in our product. From here, we then, during this process, the beer is taken from a fermenter and it gets put into a bright tank. So, Max, if you want to pan over here, there's a difference between a fermenter and a bright tank. The fermenters have a conical bottom, and the conical bottom allows us to drop out hop particulate, yeast particulate, basically drop anything out of the into the cone here while we're cold crashing. Well, once the beer it's ready to go, we centrifuge it and it goes into what we call a bright tank. This is basically a holding tank. We don't hold beer in these very long. We'll simply carbonate it through forced carbonation, and then it's ready to package. So we'll package out of all of our bright tanks here. So let's go check out packaging.
Oh, so we're cool. It's cool.
Got to take a sip of beer. All right. So, believe it or not, every single can that has ever come out of Bent Paddle has went through this Wild Goose filler. We started out with a 4-head filler, which we could run about 37 cans a minute. And actually, back in the day, this is where I started here at Bent Paddle in packaging. So, you know, I was a packager. We've since upgraded to a 5-head filler. The 5-head filler can go about 48, 49 cans a minute. If we really push it, we can get up to about 51. But yeah, it's an inline filler that you know, 2 cases a minute. It comes over here. The cans come off the decal, go through a twist rinse. We purge them. They advance 5 cans. The cans get filled. A lid gets put on. They go through the seamer. And they get kicked into our conveyor, and then the conveyor brings them around to our brewski, which is basically our case packer over here. The case packer then puts them in a box, and we send them out to you guys at the liquor stores. I know we're getting a little short on time, so I think we're gonna go taste some beers. You ready? Sweet. It's where we need that little slow motion or that fast motion walking.
Yeah. Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah, Max, you might not want to do that. You might make people a little sick. As we walk, though, how about a quick question from the crowd?
All right, guys, this is our old tap room. As in old, I don't mean, it's not like old and decrepit. We actually built a new tap room in 2018. Kind of the impetus for that was this was our original space, and we really wanted people to be able to come and check out Ben Paddle for what it is. It's a gathering space in Duluth, in the community of Duluth. And with that, due to Minnesota state law, we had to build a brewery attached to it. So in 2018, we built a destination tap room with a pilot brewery, a 7-barrel brewery. It allows us to make a lot of really fun, cool things and do a lot of experimentation. Got to give our hats off to Neil Karen. He's done a phenomenal job running that facility. So basically, we have a guy who's on staff that just makes beer at the pilot brewery. It's kind of like the dream job. But with that, we also have a level of research and development that, for me as the head brewer here, has been awesome. When we go to scale a recipe, we can try stuff out a couple times, and being able to do that's really cool. So most of these recipes, or at least two of these, were scaled from that we're going to taste now. We're scaled from the pilot brewery. So we're going to start with our Portage Hazy IPA. That we've done out of our production facility here. I'm gonna pull some notes out. Our Portage uses about 400 pounds of a total dry hop amount. We use Simcoe, Mosaic, Citra, and Racao hops in this beer, and we do a really loose centrifuge on it. So we're gonna pour a little of this one up. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we got time.
Yeah, 6 minutes. You guys are doing fine, Max.
Guy, we're pouring out a Crowlers because, as you might imagine, we have a ton of Crowlers hanging out right now. Kind of poured that. This is our Portage Hazy IPA. This is one of those beers. We talked about dry hopping. We talked about the kettle side hops. It's got a huge dry hop load in it and not a ton of hops in the kettle or the hot side. You're going to get, just hops. Kind of the thought process behind this, making a hazy beer is it's kind of that newer trend in craft brewing right now. I think they're around to stay. IP is a super versatile style. It seems like every year something even crazier and crazier is coming out. So this is our take on it. You get a ton of citrus on the nose. It's got a big, bold head. The haze holds up out of the can. It's just a all-around good beer. A lot of times a hazy is going to be almost chunky. We tried not to do that. We wanted some stable package, some package stability in there. So this is one of those beers that, for a brewery that tries to make everything nice, bright, clean, was actually very difficult for us to do, but we executed quite well. So cheers on this one. The next one we're going to do is our Imperial Wilderness Tuxedo. We used pineapple and blackberry in this beer. For this beer, it's actually pretty crazy. For each 120-barrel batch, and this is a Kettle Sour, by the way. The reason we call it an Imperial Kettle Sour is it's up at 8.3%. Most of the Kettle Sours we make are going to be like a Berliner Weiss style, right around 5% alcohol. But in this batch, we used over 5,500 pounds of fruit puree for the process of each 120. So we made quite a bit of this. I'm going to pour one up. in the glass. You're gonna get this beer it's a fun one, but it's definitely it's a sneak attack. This beer was again scaled up from a beer that we did as a test batch at our pilot brewery. That was named Tutti Fruits. This beer is 8.3% alcohol. You're gonna get a very tart acidity to it. It's right around 3.3 pH. Again, we use a ton of blackberry and pineapple in there to kind of balance out that flavor. And we were pretty proud of this one when it came out. It's a sneak attack for sure. So be careful drinking this one. Cheers. I haven't had one of these in a while. It's like juice. It's so good. And then the last beer we're gonna do today. I know we're kind of running out of time. It's gonna be chocolate raspberry black. We do a bi-monthly infusion here at Ben Paddle. So the bi-monthly infusion series takes either a beer we've made or maybe it's a new style we want to try, and we infuse it with zest or fruit or whatever. We just do an infusion of some sort. And kind of the impetus for this is back in the day we used to do one-off infusions for accounts all the time, and it got to be a point where the account would be like, can I get this, this, and this? And then it'd be promised, and we'd be like, whoa, we can't make a cotton candy chocolate black with peanut butter and coconut and all that, like just on the spot. So we started to kind of plan them out. And I think the evolution of this has been really cool. It allows accounts to really, they can use this beer. It's only available in kegs, but we put 350 pounds of berry puree and then 45 pounds of sweet and unsweetened chocolate mixture that we use into this beer. It's our traditional black ale, which you can find all over, basically all over our distro regions. But this beer has a really good balance of that malty sweetness that you get from the black ale, paired with the raspberry and chocolate that kind of comes through. Another reason we want to pour out a Crowlers tonight is just kind of let everybody know, support local. Right now more than ever, you can't help a brewery out more than just going and buying their product from their tap room, from their partners out in the liquor stores, and basically just supporting local craft beer. And that's why we wanted to show you around Ben Paddle tonight. I know it was rushed. Sorry if I was a little sporadic. I had a lot of fun. We got a lot of beer to drink now, so we're going to hang out, drink some beer, and watch the rest of the show. Cheers, guys.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Tim and Max, the professional cameraman. Can you hear me now, Max?
Okay. Am I still going?
Max, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, all right. So we do have a couple of questions. We'll try and keep them brief. We'll start off with one just goofy question here, Tim, from Dustin Jefferson. Do you have an actual wilderness tuxedo in your wardrobe?
Oh yeah, dude. I have 3. Yeah, it's the wilderness tuxedo is the it's a flannel.
Do you have it in your wardrobe though? We have those suits that we ordered.
Oh yeah, we ordered suits. Yeah, Ben Paddle ordered suits.
All right, excellent.
But yeah, the wilderness tuxedo is the flannel, man. The camp flannel. This can doesn't show it quite as well, but
you don't need to be dressed up to enjoy Mother Nature.
Yeah. This is the everyman's beer, right?
What's that?
I said this is you guys make the everyman's beer and every woman.
It's it's the every person's beer.
Right. Dave Webster, of course, wants to see the bent paddle. We might not have time for that. But Donna Muir wants to know what's the secret of the water used in the brewing process. Well, I think you mentioned the crisp clean from Lake Superior, right?
Yeah, so I didn't touch on that quite as much as I would have liked to. Obviously, we're kind of strapped for time. It's weird talking to Max on his phone. So, getting into, I'd love to give you guys all a personal tour. the one thing that we really, our brewing water is super soft, or like just in general, the city of Duluth, we use Duluth city water. And that water is extremely soft, which means it's very low in mineral content. So we don't do much to our water. In fact, our Venture Pills is a prime example of zero water chemistry changes. It is straight Duluth city water that is sourced from Lake Superior. They do add chlorine to the water. We filter that out with just a rough charcoal or activated carbon filter, if you will. And from there, that beer is basically a complete representation of what you can do with good brewing water. So our Venture Pills, there's no water adjustments in there. So if you try that beer, that was kind of the whole impetus of that beer that we make here. It's also dry hop to give it, back when we made that brand, it kind of gave it a little flair out in the market that, you needed that in the Pilsner.
A bend, if you will.
A bend in our tradition. Yeah, we bent the tradition. Nice one, Max. Yeah. But yeah, so our brewing water, besides doing water adjustments a little bit here and there, it's really something that we don't we have a really good water table to work with. So yes, we adjust the water, but we can do some beautiful things with just what we have.
All right. Well, excellent. Thank you guys so much from Bent Paddle. Everybody give
Can I answer one more question?
Of course.
So the bent paddle that she asked about is actually framed in our new tap room. So over at the tap room, you can go and see there's a area. Is it the Anger and Olson room?
Right in the back.
So there's a back room that you can go in, and the actual broken bent paddle is in there. Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, so you can actually go in there and see the actual bent paddle. And kind of how we got our namesake was Brian Tonis was, serendipitously brewing one of his last batches at Rock Bottom, Minneapolis, before he came up to start this project. There was a time back where his mash paddle had broken, and he went out to his car. He's an avid canoeer, and he was mashing in, and his paddle broke. So he went out to his car, grabbed a bent paddle. He liked it so much that he started to do it. Well, on one of his last brews there, before he came up to start bent paddle, the paddle broke, and we still have it framed in our tap room. So
come visit us when you can.
Come check it out when we can, when this whole ordeal's over, and everybody stay safe. Thank you for listening to me babble on, and cheers. Can't wait to see you all up here.
All right. Again, thanks so much to Bent Paddle for being part of this. Thanks, Max. Thanks, Tim. And without further ado, then let's get to some drawings. We've got some great bent paddle hats, along with a key floats here, and also a mystery envelope that they have sealed. So we did not open any of these. So who knows what's in there? It could be a piece of the bent paddle. It could be a $1 million gift card. But more probably likely is maybe some brewery tour tickets or another gift card. So we will do a drawing here for 5 of the hats. So have your tickets ready. Must be present to win. So as soon as I call your number, just mention in the comments that it's you, and we will verify that later. All right, the first ticket then is 720682. 720682. I'm just going to keep reading them off for time's sake so that we can keep going. Bent Paddle also was very kind and generous to provide the Bent Paddle tin tacker, as well as a Bent Paddle cooler and another hat with a little gift envelope there as well. So that will be the grand prize. The next number is 720623. The next one, 720845. Mix these up here a little bit, get some from the bottom. The next one going to be 720671. And the last hat that we will give away for right now is going to be 7206 and that is going to be the 5 hats. So we will give those winners some time to send a comment if you wanted to. You can also, on the event page at Facebook, post a picture of your ticket to verify if you'd prefer to do that. Free to be me. Ask how do people get tickets. From Sunday to Wednesday here, we had sales going on at the Growler guys, but then we also allowed for anyone that wanted to be a part of this that couldn't make it here to email into us and get a ticket by 10 p.m. last night. So we will give them some time. Those winners, the tin tacker and the cooler, are going to be part of the live drawing or part of the grand prize drawing there at the end. Linda, of course, wins with number 623. Linda is a big fan and supporter of the Growler guys, and we appreciate that. So, for time's sake, let's dive into the next go round, and that is going to be Toppling Goliath. So we will kick off their section here, and joining us from Toppling Goliath is Derek Partlow. Derek, say hi. All right, let's get started.
Welcome to Toppling Goliath. My name is Peyton. I'm our food and beverage manager. We're going to head inside, give you a quick look around the facility, and kind of check things out. And welcome to my crib. We're in the tap room now. We're going to check out a few things, kind of a little bit of history. Right behind me here, on the first ever system that we brewed on in 2009, half barrel Sabco system. Pretty straightforward for what you see here. So we're going to brew a half barrel of beer at a time. From there, we were bringing it out to our customers, getting feedback, getting thoughts on how the beer tasted. From this system then, went to a 10 barrel system, up to a 30 barrel system. And then now what we're gonna go check out here today is gonna be a 100 barrel Brewhouse system, which is gonna be pretty awesome. Obviously in 10 years, we've expanded a ton for what amount of production we're doing right now. So you're gonna follow me now over to the Brewhouse, and we're gonna check some things out. Safety first, make sure you got your glasses on here. This is where everything begins and happens for us. So kind of initially, in your beer, you're gonna have 4 main ingredients. You're gonna have your malted barley, your water, your hops, and your yeast. Those 4 things is pretty much what Toppling Goliath does very, very well. We don't add a lot of other outside ingredients into our beer besides a few different ones. So those ingredients for us are very important to how we source those, where they come from, and then how we process them. So through this giant blue door here to my left, and then through a different area is our grain room. So when all of our grain comes in, we use mainly a lot of Midwest grains, some from Canada, some from overseas, kind of depending on what beer we're producing during that time frame. But 2-row barley is going to be our main grain that we use. And all of our grain comes in through an auger system, which is up top on this our Brewhouse side over here, automatically, which is awesome to be able to have. Next big part of your beer is going to be your water. So we do use reverse osmosis for our water that we use here at Toppling Goliath. So what's pretty much what that's going to do, we're going to take city water, strip that water down to nothing, put our own minerals back into it for we want that water component to be for what our beer is going to taste like. Your beer is going to be that 90-95% water, so that water component of your beer is very, very important to the flavor profiles that we get out of our beer here at TG. So the first thing that our grain is going to hit is what you see right here behind me, which is called our wet mill. So what this wet mill is going to do, it's going to soften the grain before the grain actually even goes into the mash. A lot of places don't have this. Before we moved in this facility in November of 2017, we did not have a wet mill. So what this process is going to do, it's going to soften and squeeze the grain with water before it goes into the mash. It allows us to get the maximum amount of sugars out of that grain that we can, just to more consistency and a better beer at that point. And then from there, we have 4 different things that our beer is going to hit on the hot side, on the brew side. So our first one here behind me now is going to be our mash tun. So mash tun comes in, we're going to take that grain, add it with our water, continue to mash that grain up, helping release those sugars that are inside that grain to get the brew process really started, get those sugars activated there on that end. And then from there, we're going to head to our ladder tun, which is going to be this next big vessel here right behind me here. And what the ladder tun is going to do is we're going to take that grain and push it out. Now that grain is what's called spent grain. One thing that also is pretty neat that we do here at Toppling Goliath, all of our spent grain goes to a local farm about 20 minutes east of Decorah. They feed that to their livestock, their cattle. So as our grain leaves here, it does get repurposed as well from that. So once that spent grain's been pushed out, we're left with a watery liquid called wort. So wort is your base liquid for any beer that you would have for any of our brands that we do. So we'll have a different wort for every single beer that we produce, from Pseudo Sue to Dorothy's to King Sue, and that will change variability on what grain profile we use for each one of those brands. One thing that is also pretty new to TG is this new tank right here behind me that's somewhat separate from this brew house. So this is where we do all of our souring with our Dragon Fandango, Cherry Fandango, and any other variation of the Fandango Sour series that we do. So what this tank here allows us to do is add lactobacillus into that without not having to introduce lactobacillus, the souring agent, into any other vessels to keep that totally separate and not have that possibly damage any sort of other beer that may possibly be produced in a given day. Follow me down this way again. So you'll see here behind me a couple kettles that you'll kind of see right back in here that kind of look like old school like kettles that you'd see. This is the first time we're actually going to introduce hops into the beer. So this is where we bring our beer now. We have that liquid, that wort. We're going to go into the boil. We're going to boil our beer above 200 degrees. And when we add hops at this stage in the brewing process, it's going to be any bitter notes that we actually get out of our beer. So any bitter notes that come above that 200 degree level, we'll add more hops at a different point during the brewing process that will give us our flavors, our aromas, all those other special things that really make Toppling Goliath different. So once our beer has been in the boil for an X amount of time, the next vessel that it heads to is going to be our whirlpool. And what our whirlpool is pretty much going to do is spin that beer, help get any sort of extra particle debris that be in that beer to stick to the sides before that beer then is transferred over to our fermentation process. So that's where we're going to head next. We're going to head to the cellar, talk a little bit about the fermentation of the beer. So this is where we do our fermentation from the beer, our dry hopping from the beer, where you get a lot of the flavors and aromas that Toppling Goliath is really known for a lot of our brands. So in this process here, we'll kind of move around here to some of these tanks, you can a little better look at it. So on this side over here behind me, we have all of our 200 barrel vessels. And then on this side over here, a little bit smaller vessels than also our 100 barrel vessels. So what we're going to do when we ferment our beer, it's going to sit anywhere from 13 up to a max amount of days. Depending on our few beers, will ferment for a really long time to bring it on the style. But this is where we add yeast into the beer. And what that yeast component is going to do is going to create your CO2 and your alcohol. So once you create the yeast, is going to eat those sugars from the water. When it creates your CO2 and your alcohol, you're going to get blow off, which is what you see out of all these fun things back here, kind of bubbling over. That's the CO2 being pushed out there. So once the yeast has had its fun fermenting, eating all the sugars, we're going to do something else in our process called dry hopping. So this is where we get all those awesome flavors, aromas, all those great mouthfeels, all those aromas that you get out of Toppling Goliath brews that we're really known for, with all the tropical notes, the piney notes that you get when you drink our beer. So when we dry hop at Toppling Goliath, we're actually going to add even more hops, use different things to actually put them into these vessels, put them right in, use some hop dosers, use some different stuff to actually introduce that beer into those hops into this beer at that point. And that's where you get your awesome flavors, your awesome aromas from our brands, and then the proprietary different yeast strains that we use as well will also impart some flavors to the different styles that we want to use for our brands as well. As you can see behind us, a lot of cleaning going on in the cellar. It's kind of a daily process to make sure these tanks are good. And then also one thing you can see on the ground, all these hoses, how they attach. We take very good care of our beer to where we want to make sure we always eliminate any oxygen to it, any sort of light. And then all these tanks are aligned with what's called glycol, that it's our cooling agent that we use here to keep our temperatures where we're at for all of our different brands. So right here behind me is where we produce the majority of all of our beer. We'll look at something here right on the other side over here in a second, to where we do a lot of our specialty stouts, our fandangos, and any sort of experimental beers that we want to do from this end as well. So we'll spin around over here. You can follow me to this side. So as you can see on this side, a lot smaller tanks, a lot more 30-barrel tanks, a couple 10-barrel tanks, to where now on this side we'll be able to do, if you've had like coming up for now for some of our releases, we have Zealander coming up, some of our big stouts that we do, all of our card catalog series with our pilsners that we've done, usually sits in these tanks, allows us to produce a little bit smaller, get some beer out into the market, to kind of get some feedback from our customers to kind of see what they're thinking about our brands, instead of having to produce 100 barrels or 200 barrels of it. That it really allows us to kind of experiment more, to create even more beer for everyone out there to enjoy. So from our fermentation, the next thing our beer is going to hit what's called a centrifuge. So we'll head this direction. So this piece of equipment right here, lots of fun bells and whistles that go on with this, but this is our centrifuge. So pretty much what this is going to do is going to spin the beer very rapidly, help any of that extra hop that are in there, any extra particles from the yeast will stick to the outside and allow the beer to flow right through, to try to eliminate any sort of extra yeast or hop that may still be in the brand. All of our beer still is unfiltered, so you still may have a little bit of that sediment in the beer, but this helps eliminate the majority of what that will be. So after it runs through our centrifuge, we'll head to these other tanks right behind us. So the one right behind us is the biggest tank we have in our facility right now. It's a 400-barrel conditioning tank. And then right over here, we have a couple other bright tank conditioning tanks. This is where the beer pretty much gets finalized. So in this tank, we're going to finish our carving. We're going to get our flavor profiles right where we want them. So right whenever our beer is packaged, we are ready to go to the tap room to hit distro. We don't do any sort of conditioning in the bottle. It's going to happen right here in these tanks. So when it hits your doorstep of the tap room, it's as fresh as you can possibly be. One of the things that's pretty neat is this tank right here is one of the very first ever tanks that we had at Toppling Goliath. You can see a lot of old stickers that has been on this. This tank has always been here. Still use some, not as much as it used to, just because of the size of it more than anything else. Okay, so from our conditioning tanks, the next thing we're going to hit is our packaging lines. So our bottling line is very manual labor process, about 25 bottles a minute, compared to our canning line now, where most of our brands are going to, is right around 250 cans a minute. So a lot of increase, a lot more automation with that as well, that allows us to boost a lot more beer a lot faster. And then our kegging lines down here, and on this line now, we'll be able to produce about 1 keg every minute on the fills. And throughout each of these processes, one thing that's very also important is that vessel is going to be rinsed inside, outside, purged with CO2, filled with your delicious liquid, capped and sealed, and then all of our beer here at Toppling Goliath goes directly into cold storage from that point, which is keeps it as fresh and as long as it possibly can for that end of things. So we'll head around this way. You can kind of see as we walk throughout here on the different things. Our canning line, like I mentioned, is pretty cool. Kind of runs in a giant snake pattern throughout this entire thing. So we'll head up top here and kind of give you an overall look-see at this entire canning line. It has recently, within the past year, been added on to. Right now, we push off a case of beer about every 5 to 6 seconds, which is pretty sweet. So the initial process over here is going to start. Cans are going to kind of come through the line, go down to this end, head down into our filling station. Like I mentioned, we fill about 250 cans per minute right now at full capacity. From there, it's going to go our beers into our 4-packs, from there into our case carriers, and then, like I mentioned, onto pallets. We're pushing out a case of beer about every 5 to 6 seconds, which is pretty sweet. So from here, we'll head down, go take a peek into the cooler, look at some of our hops that we have in there. You can kind of see some of our packaged beer in our cooler area. Then we'll go to kind of the crown jewel TG. We'll peek into the barrel room. So you can follow me down the stairs. We will spend a ton of time in here. It's a little chilly. Obviously, it's a cooler. So behind me here, lots of our packaged beer. You can see everything here. And then what's going to be on this wall on this side is going to be all of our hops. So all of our hops are going to come from the Yakima Valley, majority of them out in Washington State. Right now, it's pretty cool. Some of our brewers go out there every year and do what's called hop selection. With that, they actually go out there and meet the farmers get to see where the hops are going and actually select the hops from the vibrancy, smelling them, getting right in where they're actually grown to give us the best beer possible. With that as well, we do get a few hops from New Zealand, some from Australia, different varietals to allow us to make sure we produce the freshest, best beer possible that we can here at TG. But as you can see, it's a very, very large cooler. Like I mentioned before, a lot of packaged beer. Most of this turns over pretty quick as things come. We got the forklift coming in right now. Brian bringing some beer in. So we can head out of here, kind of go to the next stop here. Like I mentioned, what TG is really known for is our barrel room. So right here, this is the barrel room. Like we mentioned, this is kind of the crown jewel. This is pretty much where the magic happens here for Toppling Goliath. As you can see here, it's a totally separate room for us compared to some other places that may have their barrels just kind of out in the open. We take very specific care of how our barrels are treated. It's like our babies. We want to make sure that they're treated exactly to make sure that we get the most out of these barrels as possible. The flavor profiles that we get out of them, the consistency that we get out of them, the yields, and really try to get all those mature flavors out of these bourbon barrels that we can to when they hit your mouth to make sure that they are tasting as awesome as they possibly can. So pretty neat room here. As you can see, this is probably the most barrels that we possibly may have ever had in here. Too deep on this side doesn't normally happen. Pretty tall here as well. Tons of different barrels, lots of collaborations have happened recently, but then a lot of our mainstays with Assassin, KBBS, but then like we mentioned, we've had some collaborations with Central Waters out of Wisconsin, Three Chiefs out of California, just to name a couple of different people that we've done collaborations with recently for our different brands. So pretty neat place in here. You can wish we had smell-o-vision right now. You can really get the aromas and everything. It's like you want to take a candle and make it, or maybe some shampoo or beard. Get some nice little beard cream there to put in this. The smells that are in this is pretty awesome. So awesome. So you got to see kind of what the barrel room looks like. So the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna head back out to the tap room and kind of finish up everything in that location. So we'll head that direction. Thanks for coming in today, taking a tour with us here at Toppling Goliath. We'd love to have you back here. Come check out the tap from the brewery. Awesome space to be. Glad that you're here. You don't got to go home, but you do have to get out of here. Thanks for watching.
All right. Well, that was an excellent tour of the Toppling Goliath Brewery. And Derek, if you could move into the frame just a little bit more there. And actually, you know what? Yeah, you're good. You're good. Let's see here. All right. Well, welcome, Derek Partlow. Thanks very much to Peyton. I was going to put his name in the video as an overlay. I didn't want to chance it that it was an E or an A in Peyton, so I just defaulted to nothing. So I apologize for that.
All good. I think he'll be all right with it. So yeah, that was our food and beverage manager in Decorah. Pretty cool video that they whipped up in the last couple of days, being that we're shut down. So everybody got basically to see unique videos of, footage of what is actually going on right now inside of breweries and what people are doing. So full video of basically a little tap room brewing process. Everybody got a little sneak peek in the barrel room, which is pretty cool. It's not every day that tours and things like that get to go in there. I mean, heck, there's times where we don't even get to go in there. So pretty cool little snapshot of that. It looks like that thing is getting full to the ceiling. So a lot more barrels in there than we usually see. So cool thing to see for anybody that's fans of our barrel aged beers. Just want to give a thanks to Growler guys for pulling this all together. There's not a lot of, on-premise business or, bars and things, restaurants and such everywhere pretty much shut down. And these guys are striving through it, selling beer to go. Really appreciate what they're doing. People that are out there right now trying to sell beer. It's amazing. Just wanted to say thanks to them and cheers. I have a little swill of my King Sue out on that one.
All right. Excellent. Well, and thank you. Thanks to you for joining us as well, Derek. What else do you got?
I was going to give we've got the 4 beers that are on it, Growler guys right now. Dorothy's, which is our lager, mildly hopped with Cascade hops, light in color, clean and crisp, flagship beer, one of our core beers. Anybody that hasn't tried that, Dorothy's has always been done pretty well at Growler Guys. Every time we've had it on tap or available in growlers, get down there and try that one. It's easy drinking, crisp and clean. Once it warms up out here, I think you'll enjoy it. The next beer was a double dry hop version of Pseudo Sue. So Pseudo Sue is our flagship Citra Pale Ale, one of our core beers. The beer that's on tap right there is a double dry hop version of that beer. So it's exclusively Citra hop, double dry hop version. Probably flavors on that, citrus, mango, kind of along the lines of what Pseudo Sue is as well. King Sue, which is Pseudo Sue's big brother or sister, dinosaur, however you want to call it. 7.8% ABV. A little bit different than, along the same lines as Pseudo Sue, exclusively the Citra hop, just a little bit more ABV. Might grab you a little better with ABV, but that's kind of my go-to. Always been a fan of King Sue. Last one is Fire Skulls and Money. That's a beer that we only do once or twice a year. Used to be something that we kind of did a little more with our brewing calendar. Now we've kind of changed a little bit of getting things set out more, only doing things once or twice a year to keep people looking for the new things. That beer, for the hops we use in that, is Citra, Mosaic, Galaxy, and Nelson. You're going to get in tropical fruit flavors, things like that. Also one of my go-to beers. I just couldn't, with being under the no travel rules and things like that, I wasn't able to. All the stores around my house were personally out of Fire Skulls and Money, so I went with my old staple, King Sue. Also have a Dorothy's here along the side if I can have a little swig of that. It's open. Kind of my go-to, like I said, so it kind of washes down the other things that we got going on. So anybody that's drinking a Dorothy's tonight, cheers.
Excellent. Well, thanks for running through those, Derek. And it looks like we do have at least one very relevant question for today. Linda, one of our winners earlier of the Ben Paddle Hat, now she's empowered that she wants to ask the tough questions. It's why does it take so long to get the new beers to the Growler Guys?
Okay, it's a very good question. So our distribution network in Wisconsin is known as the Wisconsin Beverage Network. So when that beer leaves Decorah, it goes into a distributor in Madison, which is called Frank Beer. The distributor for Eau Claire is Lee Beverage. So every time that we ship a truck to Decorah, from Decorah to Madison, Wisconsin, that truck will say arrive on a Monday or Tuesday. Lee Beverage actually picks up 2 to 3 days after that arrives. So there could be times where it could be out in Madison the week before, and then it'll be out in Eau Claire the next week. The only difference there is just the time of arrival into the state. Lee Beverage does do a great job of getting that out pretty quick. If there's anything exclusive that you people are needing from Growler Guys, you let me know. And I got a decent sized car. I can probably run some kegs up for you guys too. Get them there a little quicker. But no, you guys are getting them pretty quick. There could be some things that are not the same, but
Linda's never satisfied, and I mean that in the nicest way. Love you, Linda.
Oh, that's all right.
Donnie Zhang asks, are the TG Brewing videos available for rewatching? And I think I might be able to answer that one. Donnie, this YouTube Live is going to be saved and available and probably shared on our Facebook page as the Growler Guys. If you're not friends or followers or have liked our page in the past, certainly we'd enjoy it and appreciate it if you did that. But otherwise, I'm guessing that a marketing effort like this is probably going to be saved and would be out there. Derek, anything that you've got to add there, or am I right on point?
Yeah, so we save everything we do. I'm sure they might try to show that video in another place, different time. But like you said, this, I believe, will be viewable in the future on YouTube. So we'll be able to go back and view that video. But yeah, most of the videos, if it's posted on any social media platform, it obviously stays there. But this video literally got sent and completed to Growler Guys about 45 minutes before we went live here. So we've been working hard the last couple of days to get it all pulled together.
Definitely. So another one about when is Marcello going to get to us? I think we sort of touched on that. We're going to get it here as soon as possible.
So Scorpius Marcello will be here. It arrives in Wisconsin next Tuesday. It should be in Eau Claire by the end of the week next week.
All right, excellent. You heard it here first, Linda. All right. Well, thank you very much, Derek, for being part of it. And I suppose we better do a drawing here. So, Derek, I'll let you off the hook here, but thank you very much. And
Yeah, cheers, everyone.
Yeah, cheers. This is a tasting, after all. We might as well have a sip or two.
Some beers, right?
All right. Well, we've got some great prizes from Toppling Goliath. So let's bring those up here. We've got a couple of shirts. Our social distancing rules say that we weren't going to take it out of the plastic, so you can be satisfied there that this is pristine condition. We've got 2 of those, and then we've got their fantastic, I forget which brand this is, but the Grizzly Cooler. So those are really good. It's got the nice Toppling brand on it. So that's going to be part of the grand prize package, along with the bent paddle cooler and the tin tacker. So we've got a couple of t-shirts to give away. Again, thanks everybody for joining in. We're going to be here for another hour. So if your friends are sitting around bored, send them the link. Let them know that we're here. We are having fun. Make sure to go back and take a look at the comment from the Growler guys here. There's the winning numbers for the bent paddle prizes. So for one of the Toppling Goliath shirts, rather, 720749. Drop a comment in there on YouTube. Send a picture to us on the event page there on Facebook. 720749. And honestly, if nobody claims this stuff by the end of the live event, we're just going to draw a bunch more numbers. So don't anybody go anywhere. 720744. So we'll give those 2 winners, and I'll post those in the comments as well. But 720744, 720749. Oh, those are really close. I hope that's not the same person. Can't have somebody winning twice. All right. So we've got some winners there. I will put those in the comments and bring in our next guest, who, and also, I think that we should all give a big virtual round of applause to Peyton and Derek. All right. That's right. Yes. Out there, and as well to the bent paddle folks, and I apologize that I didn't have everybody give the round of applause for them. But let's bring in our next guest, and that is none other than Omar, the
That is correct. Everyone fill up your glass. I don't care what you're drinking. It's that time. We're all now getting used to Zoom calls. Let me just check. Uh-oh. Whoops. Greg, hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, whew. That's good. But we are all now in a new world of Zoom calls, Zoom drinking, Zoom happy hours. So, as usual, I poured a beer with too much head. So let's start off with that, right? Cheers, everyone. Bent paddle TG. Nice to work, fellas. So here's the thing. Greg, I know TG had a great video, and I don't have any videos. And I know that the bent paddle guys gave you a tour. So we're going to give you a tour. We're upstairs in the man cave. So we've got a lot of whiskey up here. So that's exciting. We got some Weller, a little bit of Bullet Rye, some Grand Marnier. We've got the record players still going. I think we're spinning some sugar right now. So that's the tour part of this video. So there's no videos, there's no tours. There's just me here talking and telling stories to you folks. So that's really kind of where what we're going to do. And I think the best part is, if people do have questions, send them on over to Greg, and he can shoot them out to me. But, yeah.
I was just going to say, absolutely. We've got the comments up, so continue to have those rocking and rolling here on the video. So if you have any questions for Omar, please send them in.
Yeah. But no, this is awesome, and Greg, I certainly appreciate this, what you put together. We've had some technical problems getting going, but I think everyone does, like, as we're all trying to figure out this new world order of how to do things, of how to get together, of how to drink a beer. We got to do it any way we can. So I think this is a good way to get together and drink some beers, as Greg is putting up some of our swag in the background. Let's talk a little bit. Surly's been around a little bit longer than TG and Bent Paddle. We've been around for 14 years now, coming up on just over 14 years. And that's one of the things I think about the beer business is there is always a million stories, and it's where you want to go. And one of the great things, one of the best stories for me is, I started off as a home brewer. So I started homebrewing in 1994. My college girlfriend gave me a homebrew kit from Northern Brewer, the same kind of thing you can get today. And started homebrewing. I did that on and off for a number of years. I'm sure, Greg, some of the people watching today are homebrewers. I kind of got the idea, in 2004 to get a brewery going. And, when I got that idea going, of course, I told my wife that was the big thing, to get her on board with this crazy idea. And I think the next person I told was the guy that I got all my homebrewing supplies from. Because that, if you're a homebrewer, usually you got a guy or a gal, someone pretty well that you're talking to. So that person for me was someone that worked at Midwest Homebrew Supply. So I live in Midwest Homebrew Supply is like 3 miles from my house. So I go there. If you're a home brewer, you've always got, you're always going to and fro the homebrew shop because you don't have this, you don't have that, or you lost your stopper or something. So I would be going there all the time working on my brewing stuff. And my guy at Midwest Homebrew Supply was a guy by the name of Colin. And he was just a dude that, had a pretty good vibe to him, had a great attitude. And whenever I would go in, and, he'd be on the phone, I would wait. Like, I'd just stand around for 30 minutes waiting for him to get off the phone to talk to him. And he was literally one of the first people I told, like, hey, dude, I think I want to start a brewery. And remember, this is 2004 in Minnesota, where there were no breweries, right? We only had, 4 craft breweries at that time. And so I talked to Colin. He thought it was a great idea. He worked at a homebrew store. Colin then moved on to be the head brewer at Barley John's, which is a legendary brew pub in the Twin Cities. And he met someone that I knew who was president of the director of the Minnesota Craft Brewers Guild, and they started dating. And I remember talking to them after Autumn Brew Review, which is the big beer festival in Minnesota, about you guys should start a brewery together. And Colin and Laura are 2 of the 4 founders of Bent Paddle. So it's really cool to see, people you meet early on and people you talk to end up turning into something else. And obviously they've done an amazing job at Bent Paddle and brewed a lot of great beers and kind of completely invigorated the beer scene in the northern Minnesota beer scene. So anyway, just one story of the beer world that it's kind of funny. Here we are on a video chat, and there's people that we kind of I was part of starting, got me started in the beer business 18 years ago. Here we are all doing a video chat with the Growler guys, which is pretty cool. So that's just one story of how how these connections work. For us, it's interesting because there's so many differences between states of how things work and how the beer businesses work. I did an interview on Brewbound yesterday, which is a lot of folks know who Brewbound is. It's a big kind of website that talks a lot about beer, and it was so funny because they were really shocked about how we don't sell beer to go. We don't grocery stores don't sell beer in Minnesota, which is obviously really different than in Wisconsin. Which is where mostly the listeners are here today. But breweries like us can't sell beer to go like they do at Bent Paddle and they do at Toppling Goliath because we're too big. Grocery stores don't sell beer, so there's really an amazing amount of differences out there. which, we've all grown to know how they work. But now that the world is upside down and bars and restaurants don't sell beer anymore, and liquor stores are kind of where all of our beer sales go to now, because we've never had any beer sales to go, which a lot of people do, has been an interesting sort of piece to navigate for us at the brewery. So we've been, like every brewery right now, is trying to figure out how to get through things. We've got a really large hospitality component at Surly. We've got a beer hall, we've got the beer garden, we've got a pizza place, we've got an event center. So it was about a month ago that we had to furlough 280 of our 360 employees. So we're trying to figure out how to get through this new world order, like every business is, especially breweries, liquor stores, bars, restaurants, trying to figure out what to do. So that's our big challenge today is, we're started doing takeout, which, when we started doing the takeout, we'd sell, $400 or $500 a day. We're doing more than that now, which is, but, the liquor store business has been so weird because it's gone from a lot of specialty beers to all 12 packs and large format beer. So we're literally trying to figure out what's going on in the world because, it has all changed sort of right in front of us. And, it's literally every day. I mean, we've been saying this from the beginning since all this started, it is literally day by day of what we've got going on. So hopefully we will keep hopefully we'll keep figuring out the challenges in front of us and how to take them on. But it is a pretty crazy world that we're all living in right now, which is why we're all here.
Well, and so thanks for spinning on that a little bit, Omar. Obviously, I'm sure that's weighed heavy, having to let people go or even to furlough them or lay them off and things. But you know what? We're all here to maybe get a little bit of call it escapism or whatever you might want to say. So not that isn't important, obviously, but we do have some questions rolling in.
Great.
And yeah. So one of them, I think it came up in both of the other presentations from the other breweries, is the water. A lot of you mentioned home brewing and things, and
Right.
water being so important in the brewing process. Do you use Minnesota water as is, or do you adjust it before starting the brew?
Well, so the original brewery in Brooklyn Center, that's our small brewery that we started with. That brewery, the water, that's a suburb of Minneapolis, and in that city, they got their water, unlike most of the metro, they got it from it was well water, so they used aquifer water. So we had a really big change from Todd, our head brewer, when we got going. He'd worked at Rock Bottom, the same place Brian Thomas had worked, who had the bent paddle story from Bent Paddle. In Minneapolis, they pull their water from different sources throughout the year, which makes it a challenge. So we had water that's extremely hard, a lot of mineral content. But the great thing about it was, being that it was aquifer water, it was the exact same water every day of the year, and we didn't have to change it. So that was something that was a challenge because of the high mineral content, but we sort of embraced that's the way our water is, and didn't really do anything to it all these years. So that's how we started. And then when we looked for the new brewery site, the new brewery in Minneapolis, one of the big issues we had was water and trying to figure out what to make work. So the site that we ended up choosing, one of the main reasons we chose that site was because it had a well into the same aquifer. So even though we're in Minneapolis, which everyone uses Minneapolis water, we're able to literally tap into that same well water and or that same aquifer, I should say, the Jordan aquifer, and use that same water. So it's kind of crazy that we've got a brewery 8 miles away, but we're all pulling water from the same water source, so we're able to kind of keep that the same. So we've got pretty hard water. It's certainly, for some of our beers, we've got to soften it up, our pilsners and such. But that's sort of kind of the nature of the beer, of the water that we have, certainly comes through in the beers that we have too.
So Thanks for elaborating there on the water,
All
Omar.
right, Greg. So for whatever reason, I'm losing you on.
Okay. Yep.
There
Am
you
I
go.
back? Hey. All right. Sorry about that. I could tell that you were hearing me through our Skype call, and I was screwing you up. So I wanted to make sure I didn't do that. Thanks for elaborating on that. Definitely
Sure.
something of interest. There's questions out there. Lots of people saying that you were the catalyst. You were the gateway. I know that may have a negative connotation, but surely was a lot of people's first beer. So just, I think there's a lot of appreciation coming from the comments. And how did that get so big? And how did it lead to
Yeah.
thousands of people camping overnight
Right.
in tents in Somerset, right?
Yeah. Well,
Spin on that.
it started in Brooklyn Center and then moved to Somerset, and now we've kind of kiboshed it. But when we all look at the craft beer business, Greg, how long have you guys been doing this at the Growler Guys store?
So we hit our second year anniversary the end of February this year.
Okay.
I did some very poor home brewing before that, but for craft beer, mostly I just enjoy it.
So it's relatively on the newer side, and what I think happened is you've got to look at the world of craft brewing and how it's grown and the changes that have happened. And the older you are, the more you kind of get a picture of how it is. And I'm almost 50, so I've got a good picture of how craft beer has been. And when I grew up, my dad, there was no craft beer, right? I mean, there was Sierra Nevada, but I'd never heard of it. I didn't know anything about it. So, it didn't, for me, there was no craft beer until I started drinking Summit back in my college days in the late 80s, early 90s. I grew up in Minnesota here. And, that was it. And, it's pretty cool, little weird beer. And you drink, you get a 6-pack of that and a case of Liney's Red or something like that. And that's how you spent your weekend. But, what really happened was there was a huge void in the market. And kind of as craft grew around the country, Minnesota and Wisconsin were definitely two states that did not have a craft beer scene. Wisconsin is such an anomaly. And I've said this for ever since I started the brewery, like beer never left Wisconsin, right? Like beer has been, beer was huge in a lot of states, and then Prohibition killed it, and then it came back pretty poorly in a lot of areas, but it never left Wisconsin. But because there were so many lager breweries in Wisconsin, there was not quite that new American craft beer scene. We didn't have that in Minnesota either. Summit has brewed a lot of great beers for, I think they're 25, 27 years. They've brewed a lot of great beers, but they've kind of been sort of, some English style IPAs and porters and such. So they didn't kind of jump on that bandwagon of that new style of American IPAs and the big beers and the barrel-aged beers. So when we got into it in 2006 is when we started. When we started going, there was no one in Minnesota in the craft beer scene that was brewing beers like that because, once again, so many of the laws that are existing in a state end up determining how the beer scene works in that state. Because Minnesota brew pubs couldn't sell to bars and liquor stores, breweries couldn't sell pints, they couldn't sell growlers, so it was really hard for a brewery to start business. So we didn't have breweries because it was so hard to start. We had some great brew pubs, but they couldn't sell to the market. So we just had this void that we jumped in on, and the market was just the market devoured the beer because they wanted someone that was brewing big IPAs, barrel aged beers, sour beers that no one else did. So that's kind of why we blew up. And us going to the Great Taste, our first year in 2006 was a huge part for Surly. We tried to get an invite and just we didn't get a response. The Great Taste is such an iconic event and it's so busy. And it's kind of funny. I met one of the guys, one of the organizers at a Beer Advocate Festival in Boston. And I'm like, dude, we really want to go to your beer festival. What do we got to do? And I think he saw us out there and was like, we should probably let these guys in. And, the Great Taste is for us been a big part of our story in Wisconsin of how we grew and became a name that people recognize. So we really were there at a point when the craft beer scene was doing this, and when the internet beer scene was doing this. It's a little different now, but back at that point, Beer Advocate, Rate Beer, I mean, they ruled the beer scene, and they built the people that were going to be the big breweries. So we got to the right time, and to Darkness Day, that was something that when we opened, we could not sell growlers. That wasn't legal. The year we opened, someone else passed a law that we could sell growlers. The next year they passed it so breweries could sell 750s. So that first year in 2006, we sold 2 kegs of Darkness. That was our big, 60 growlers of Darkness. I know there's one guy that has a growler of 2006 Darkness. I can't imagine it tastes very good, but he still hasn't opened it. It's still in his fridge. Wanker Weasel. A lot of people in the beer world know who he is. And then the next year we bottled it. We put it in 750s. And we had 500 bottles because they changed that bill the next year. We sold it as early as we could, and it was December, a Saturday, December day. We sold those bottles, and you guys in Wisconsin know what Saturdays are like in Wisconsin. I mean, in Minnesota, it was an ass cold day, and people got there early, and we brought them in to the brewery because it was so goddamn cold. I bought them a whole bunch of Krispy Kreme donuts. And we gave them free beer. We had a band play. Like, we kind of blew them away, which was fun. And that's where Darkness Day started, and it just grew from there. So it got to be quite a big scene. We ended up moving it to Somerset 2 years ago to try and make it bigger and add a beer fest component. And, the reality is it needed to be at Surly and here at home. So we decided this a while ago to say we're not going to do it in Wisconsin. We're not going to do it at our old brewery in Brooklyn Center. We'd like to do it at our new brewery in Minneapolis. The laws don't let us do it. So we've said we'll have Darkness Day when the laws change and we can do it at our new brewery because it's an 8-acre building, 8-acre site where lots of people can camp out. So we certainly want Darkness Day to come back. You were all, I think, you've got some barrel-aged Darkness to drink, I believe, or you guys are selling growlers of that. Is that right, Greg?
Right now, actually, we're doing only new growlers just because of the health ramifications, and we're not able to probably sanitize. So we're doing growlers. We've got a couple of the bombers to give away of some Darkness. I think a couple different years. But I mean, what a phenomenon that what started as just like, hey, come and get this great new brew turned into something that you couldn't even handle, right? So you had to move it to a concert ground.
There is no question. When we started in 2006, there were 700 breweries in America. I think there's 8,000 now. People ask me all the time, they're like, did you think it was going to get this big? I'm like, fuck no. Like, no one thought, like, if anyone thought it would get that big, then everyone would have opened a brewery in 2006. Like, the world changed, and it's changing again right now. And it was far bigger and more successful than I ever could have hoped. And it's been a crazy ride to try and I always say it's like sort of trying to control an explosion as it's like blowing up in every angle and every side. You can't. You just do the best you can. So it's been fun to kind of be, sort of one in the front, if you will, of sort of this next generation of craft beers. It's been wild, and to sort of see everything that how things have changed. When I went out, because I used to sell the beer, I was the sales guy for Surly. I would go out and bars were just like, nope, we're good. We got 4 handles and we don't need any more. And now every bar's got 20 handles, and most of the handles are our local craft beer, where it used to be like, oh, we got Bell's, we're good, or we got Summit, we're good, and that's it. And now, I mean, all the beers on tap are craft beers, and maybe there'll be a domestic or two or three domestics. So,
well, I think that I've got nothing but thanks to give to a pioneer like yourself, Omar, We have an entire business around craft beer. So,
Right.
I mean, it is crazy. And I think that just the tastes have went away from, well, it's cheap, so I mean, like,
Right.
the passion that's poured into so many different beers, you and your team and everything, and Shirley creating this phenomenon that is Darkness Days. I actually didn't hear about it, and shame on me. I actually was introduced to Darkness Days. I have never attended, unfortunately,
Uh,
by my cousin, or I guess my cousin's husband from Michigan. He and
Right.
some of his friends that were from Minneapolis, they would come, and we were together for his bachelor party, and they did a beer tasting. And I had, admittedly, been only exposed to, again, the Summits, maybe the Two Hearted. I do love Two Hearted,
Sure.
so
Everyone
nothing.
loves Two Hearted. I mean,
Right.
come on.
But so they bring out all these bombers, and I'm just like, how do you guys even get these? Where do and like, so it was great trying everything, and then they talk about this thing they're doing the next day. And it was a pretty mild bachelor party as far as maybe those go. It was in Minneapolis, but I'm like, why did you come all the way here to do it? He's like, we're camping out tomorrow. And like, they talked about the year before and how they like nearly froze to death, and I'm like, sounds awesome, guys, but I'm a bit older than you, and so it's amazing that it's went from what was essentially just like, hey, if you want some of this,
Right.
we're opening it up, to a concert ground, to now regulators won't even let you do what you want to do, and unfortunately sometimes that stands in the way. Again, maybe that's why we're here. But we do have a couple of other questions.
Sure.
One of them being, and you talked about hard water. Well, yeah, you got to have hard water when your name's Surly. You can't have soft water, right? So how'd the name come about, and what's a little bit of a spin on that?
Yeah, well, so when I talked to my wife Becca in 2004 on a Saturday, that's when I came up with the whole idea for the brewery and told her about this great idea. And I'd been working with my parents. We had a small business, abrasive business, so we sold grinding wheels. So I'd go to Milwaukee, go into foundries, down to Water Street, trying to sell people grinding wheels, and Nina, and a bunch of places. So it was a really crappy business selling a commodity product. Like, the name, like, there was no fun to it. It was just a product that you sold, and what was the price. And it was just very evident from day one, like, beer is different, right? Like, you can have fun with beer. Like, there's a story with beer. The beer the drink, the beer you choose to drink tells people about who you are, right? Like, what you want to drink. And, my original idea was, the best names for breweries are local, right? They're always in their community. Unless you're Budweiser or Miller or Coors. Like, outside of those guys, everyone still has a home base, and they grow from there. And, we're in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. So we're close to Minneapolis, near the lakes, Hennepin County, like, Brooklyn Center. There's already a Brooklyn Brewing. Like, there's nothing we had sort of regionally that was exciting or interesting to anyone. So that wasn't going to work for us, because that to me is the most, the thing that makes the most sense for the name of a brewery. So what we wanted to do was, trying to come up with a name we could have some fun with and do some interesting things with. And my wife and I actually were flying out to Portland, Oregon to go on a beer drinking trip. We went to Deschutes and Full Sail and Widmer and what is it? Hair of the Dog, bunch of small breweries. And when we're flying out there, I turned to Becca. I'm like, what happens? Like, we've been focusing on, kind of this, what happens when you can, a good beer, like, kind of good vibes about beer. Like, what happens when you can't find a good beer? Because back in those days, in 04, you could easily walk into a bar and they'd have 4 handles, and you'd have Miller Lite, Liney's, and Bud.
Yeah, we here in Wisconsin, Omar, we call that north of Highway 8.
and that's it, right? Like there are a lot of bars like that. And I would say, like, you turn to your friends and say, listen, I know you guys don't care about beer, but I do. Let's go somewhere else that has good fucking beer.
That's what this looks like.
And that was you can get surly when you can't find a good beer. And that's sort of where the name came from, where the logo came from, you know, that you get a little, we have a new logo now, but, you know, you get a little.
I've got it on the screen for you, Omar.
What's that?
It's on the screen. I know that you probably aren't seeing the live feed, but it's there. The hex,
Thanks.
right?
Well, yeah, that's the new logo. I'm just saying the old logo. Well, here, it's right there on my arm.
Oh, right. Yeah. I do remember that.
That's the old logo. It's like you can't find a good beer, you get kind of fucking pissed off. But you know, things have, you know, when I was selling beer in 2006, it was me and my F-250 driving around, like knocking on, hey, you guys want to try some beer? And, you know, there was one
fuel
bar
efficient, that F-250.
It's still around. Well, it's super. Who cares now? Gas is $1.50. But, you know, I went to one bar, and it was, like, seen as a good beer bar because they had 20 handles. And the dude spit Furious out. He was like, he drank it and literally spit it out in front of me. And I'm like, this is a really tough sales call, you know? And he's like, dude, why didn't you tell me it was so hoppy? I'm like, well, I told you it was an IPA. I figured you knew what that meant. And I gave him my card. I'm like, well, here you go. You know, give me a call. But, you know, the beer world has changed so much, and all for the better. You know, like, we're talking to, you know, we've got two other breweries, TG and Ben Paddle, that brew great fucking beers, and you guys are selling great beer. That's kind of what everyone wants in the beer business, is just more good beer. So
you mentioned Becca, who I'm sure is a wonderful and excellent person, being your wife, and tolerant, I would imagine, too.
Well, you know, I drank too much the other day, so
I mean, you've been stuck in the house for a month, so you know,
that's true.
But what people want to know, they're asking the question: was she the girlfriend that bought you your first brewing kit? Shh. Okay, that's all the farther it needs to go.
Listen. She's heard this story. She's okay with it. I didn't marry her. I married Becca, so she's okay with the story.
All right, excellent. Well, people did want to know.
Hold on, there is a good part of that story. The gal that did buy me the homebrew kit, from Milwaukee.
Of course she was.
Like, she took me on my first homebrew, you know, my first brewing tour. We went to Sprecher, you know, and, you know, I brewed crappy homebrew, and she's like, it doesn't matter, it's beer. And I'm like, well, of course you don't care. You're from Wisconsin. You'll drink anything.
Well, now you know that that's not true.
But anyway, It was, no, she got me going, and she was a huge beer fan. But I have to say, because it's true, like, beer is part of culture in Wisconsin that we don't have in Minnesota. And I think, you know, Derek could agree, like, that's not part of the Iowa beer culture. Like, it's just not there, you know? And I remember her taking me down to Summerfest, and I'm just like, this is insane. Like, look at all of the music, all of the beer. Like, it's just a different scene. And it's, as someone that likes beer, it's great.
So that leads us to our next question. When we're talking about beer and lots of different kinds of it, what is your favorite beer outside of Surly?
Is there any? I didn't know that.
No, actually it doesn't exist. Those other people we had on this live stream are fake.
Listen,
actors.
I drink a lot of Surly, but I'm a big fan of Steel Toe. They're right here in the Twin Cities. I'm not saying them because they're here, but I'm a big fan of Bent Paddle's beers. They brew great beers, and it's great that you have them on here today. Man, I mean, those are two of some of the ones that are standbys for me when I'm out in the market. I will certainly always, you know, when I'm out, especially outside of the Twin Cities, and I'm at a place that does not have beer, I will always get a TG beer, and I'm not saying that because because Derek's here, but that is literally, whenever there's something certainly that I haven't had of theirs, I want to see what it is and drink it. But outside of those breweries, right, the ones we all know, and Bell's, right? I mean, iconic. It is literally what's new and what's local, right? Trying to find out some new beer, when you're traveling and trying to find out what folks are drinking around town. But yeah, if I'm out, if I see a bent paddle I haven't had or a TG beer that I haven't had, I will definitely drink those. Or Bell's I haven't had, I will always drink those beers.
Well, and I'm sorry to cut you off. And I think what you were saying there, Omar, is that you can trust that label, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that has been a change since we started in 06. Like, they're with, I always say it's like a bell curve, right? We all know a lot about curves these days.
Yeah.
When you got 8,000 breweries on a bell curve, there's some that are here you don't want to drink. There's a lot in the middle, and then there's some on the other tail that are really good. And you want to drink over here, right, where there's a lot of good breweries. And the sad reality is there's a lot of not great breweries out there. And, there's just so much of it. A lot of them are local, so a lot of them make it because of that. But that's, Greg, that's your job as a purveyor to pick which ones are the good ones, which ones, because you must have guys coming in every day saying, hey, sell our beer. Like, we opened a new brewery, try out our beer. And some you're probably like, this is great. And some are like, yeah, you need to work on this beer a little bit.
So it's like when you ask them, Omar, well, what's your flagship? Well, we don't really have one. That it's the first clue that just, if you don't have one
Right.
that makes you money to fuel all your creative efforts, then you're not
Right.
there yet. And, I think that when you talked about going out to Portland and you talked about just the sheer number of breweries across the nation, that there's 8,000 out there, there's still 2,000 applications tied up in government red tape, or they don't have the funding, or there's, unfortunately, we have seen a few close out west, right? There maybe was a bit of a saturation, and it only helps rise the good ones to the top. Steel Toe, I had never tried it until just recently. A bartender said, we were drinking some good beer and having some IPAs, and that's where I tend to, my spectrum settles as my favorites. And he says, you know what, you got to try these ones. And I walked down to the lower bar that wasn't open to get us one of these that was on tap down there, and gave us a little snifter, just goodness of his heart sort of thing. And whoa, they're doing some good stuff over there, but so simple. Somebody, and I'm addressing a question in a very roundabout way here. Somebody said, when is Steel Toe 7, and then Steel Toe they're size 7, and then I think they've got a size 11. That was what I tried that day. Their double IPA. There's so no frills. I don't know if they'll ever distribute to Wisconsin.
No.
I haven't been to their brewery, but very simple.
And I don't know, right? I mean, I've talked to those guys, but I mean, that's kind of part of their plan. Like, he has stayed small. He's self-distributed. He's totally cool with it.
And look at New Glarus, has prided themselves on being a Wisconsin product. And I remember when I used to be sleeping on couches just so I could get free lift tickets in Vail, and we'd mule back a trunk full of Fat Tire.
Right.
I mean, I love New Belgium, but I don't know if I drink Fat Tire.
Well, but
don't tell them.
Once again, Wisconsin is unique. And people say, like, you should just sell your beer in your state. I'm like, to see what New Glarus has done is stunning. Like, to sell that much beer in one state, you can only do that in Wisconsin. And
the brewery is beautiful.
Absolutely, but I remember I was doing a liquor store tasting at like Discount Liquor in Milwaukee or somewhere, and I just remember seeing people pulling cases of New Glarus out and no Miller. I'm like, oh my God, Miller's the hometown brewery, but New Glarus is Wisconsin's brewery. Like, it was awesome to see as a craft brewer. It's very cool to see.
I mean, Miller maybe not so hometown anymore. Well, a topic for another podcast.
Correct, but they employ a lot of people in Milwaukee, right?
Of course.
You got
so. Well, I think that if I'm going to be selfish here, I've got to ask you one question. You were drinking a Furious, right?
That is correct.
And we'll cheers to that.
Cheers.
I did one man mosh pit. I might have you might have heard me request very politely to Ross to bring me one while I'm back here. This is not a green screen, by the way. Back behind me, I'm actually in the store. Out and about. But what about the actual movement of beers, where it is always just, they talk about flagship February. They talk about every snob out there wants the newest, haziest IPA because that's the thing now. I mean, do you have any personal preference on that? And I don't think you offend anyone by saying, you know what, standbys are great, but why does it always have to be the newest, greatest, shiniest?
Okay, well, a few things on that. Number one, I had to switch to my iPad. I have 5% left. So if I just go black on you, it's not because I'm tired of talking to you, but I've run out of juice. Number two, will you tell me, are the biggest selling beers you have the one-offs or the flagships?
I mean, half our board is IPAs to start with, and half of those are probably the ones that are the newest. You're absolutely right. And all right, Omar, I'm sending you a charger for Christmas, okay? When's your birthday?
Listen, dude, I've had my phone going, like my computer didn't work up, like we've been busting out everything. But anyway, I listen, I like flagships, right? I mean, let's go back to Two Hearted, right? Like that is
perfect example.
That one up there of like, God, this is a great beer. What else could you do better? But a double dry hopped Two Hearted, well, who doesn't want to drink that? It's funny because we started as a brewery that was doing different things and new things that other breweries weren't. We embraced the new. And then, kind of the new change, and like we didn't brew hazy IPAs. I mean, you heard Ben Paddle. They're like, oh, we didn't do that for a bit. We didn't do that for a bit. One Man Mosh Pit was our first one, and I love that beer. I will now drink that. If I've got a Furious and a One Man in the fridge, I'll grab the One Man.
Me too. I got the One Man finished.
It took us a while to do it, because some of the guys were like, well, I don't want to brew that beer. Like it's not a brewer's beer because it's hazy and they're not supposed to be that way.
Well, and then the stringent labels of craft, I mean, beyond production and ownership, is you brew with traditional ingredients, right? What are traditional anymore? Right. Let me ask you this before you answer. Do you want to hang? Do you want to hang for a little bit more than 5%?
Well, I mean, that's all I got.
Well, so, I'm saying, do you want to go grab a charger? Do you want to go grab a charger? I'll do some drawings.
I'll do some drawings because here's the challenge. My Wi-Fi, like my Wi-Fi booster up here, that's the same plug it's the same outlet as my charger, and they both don't fit. So that's the reality. So we should probably get to the drawings now before you.
All right, guys. So we need on Christmas list for Omar, chargers, electrician. I'm kidding, man. You know what? And actually,
tell you what, Greg, next time we do this, I'll go first.
Wait. I heard next time. Everybody heard it. Are you out there? Everybody's out there. You're on the hook, man.
This is all we got. Like, I don't go to bars and drink beer and hang out with people anymore. That's kind of how everyone in the beer business, that's what we do. So, if a vaccine is found tomorrow, you're on the hook for at least one more. All right. Listen, if we find a vaccine tomorrow, I'll be back I'll be back in 2 weeks. You got it.
All right. Omar, I'm gonna ask you to do this. You guys sent over some great stuff. I think it was a
Yeah.
last-minute prize. So I'm going to go grab that. You spin a
Yes.
tail. You are freestyling. I'm muting in 3,
Nice.
2, 1. And
All right.
you've got let's say 5 minutes.
Okay. Oh, 5 minutes. Well, great. Well, hopefully I don't
Fill
run
it.
out of. You run because now I only have 3%. But I'm assuming a lot of the listeners are fans of the Great, and that was a big beer fest for us to get invited to early on. And it's funny because back in the day, we always, as a Minnesotan, I have a love-hate relationship with Wisconsin, as any good Minnesotan does, because, my old girlfriend that got me the homebrew kit was from Wisconsin. And, I'm a Vikings fan, so I've got a lot of animosity towards Wisconsin in general. And it was back at the time, 06, the Vikings were not, I don't think it was. Yeah, it was not. It was a little bit after the heyday, so not their best years. So our first, the first sour we brewed was our second year at the Great Taste, and it was a Brett Amicey's beer. So it was great because we brought that beer to the Great Taste, our first sour, our first Brett beer, and we named that one F.U. Brett Favre. And we made everyone that ordered it, they would have to literally say the whole name for us to pour them the beer. And it was just spectacular because so many people would literally not say F.U. Brett Favre, even though they wanted the beer. So it was wonderful to see so many Scotties come up to Surly, come up to the booth, and they'd say, "Hey, can I have your sour?" And I'm like, "What's that?" They're like, "Your sour beer. Can I have your sour beer?" I'm like, "Which beer is that?" And they would point and they'd say, "That one." I'm like, "Well, could you tell me exactly what that is?" And then they would kind of hang their head and they would say the whole name of the beer. And it was really ingratiating and made me feel better that I had to have all of these Scotties order an F.U. Brett Favre. So that's really one of the highlights for me as Surly.
What a great story. And you know what? F you, Omar. I'm kidding. You know what? Fine. Go to the Jets. But when he came back to Minnesota, we're not friends anymore. And now
we're so close. So close.
Yeah, well, you've been close before.
Someday.
98.
Let's not get into football right now.
Right.
I don't argue with a Packers fan about football because I know that never works out well for me.
I forgot to almost change my shirt into Growler, guys. There's a big G on here, so you would have liked that. All right.
Great.
So I think that Omar's probably about to lose his connection here. I really want to say thank you, Omar. Obviously, this was awesome. I think, for a while there, I forgot that we had viewers, thousands. You're not watching the YouTube live. It's probably closer to hundreds, but it's okay. But I think that I would love to.
So, Greg, you're saying hundreds of thousands of viewers.
Exactly. And you know what? If sales pick up for Surly, just send me a check. Make it to cash.
Okay. So one thing now, we're swinging money in the beer world.
You know what? Hire everybody back first because this is a serious thing. And I really want to say that we understand. This is why we did that. We want your brand to stay out there. We want our brand to stay out there. We just want people to support each other, community. It really is all about that.
Well, listen, and I will say, no joke, I'm only at 2%, but no joke, the breweries you support are the ones that are going to make it. The restaurants you go to and buy takeout, they're the ones that are going to make it. We've got a thing at Surly called #TasteBetterLocal. I don't care where you are. You're the Twin Cities, you're in Eau Claire, you're in Chicago, you're in LA. Like, everyone needs to support their local places because you probably know the person that runs the place, or the chef, or the dishwasher, or someone that works there. Like, it does matter where you spend your dollar. Like, right now, it really matters where you spend your dollar. So please, if you want someone to survive, don't hope that they're going to survive. If you have the ability to, go there and get some takeout. Go there and buy a beer because it does matter.
I mean, there are lots of avenues. There's actually GoFundMe's for certain wait staffs and things like that. And I know that that's tough, but if you do go out, tip them well. They're working hard. None of that stuff. I mean, right now for us, there isn't a single dollar going in our pockets. We want to make sure that that's turned around. It's operating expenses and staff.
Sure.
We plan on bringing people back, staff wise. So
Sure.
we know that you're in that same difficult position, probably just like Ben Paddle, Toppling Goliath. We just didn't have time to talk about it with them. Let's get to some drawings. Hang out, Omar, if you want to see the excitement. All right.
1%, so I'll hang on as long as I can.
All right. You're going back to Skype. You're getting relegated. All right. We're going back to just me. Maybe, if I remember how to work this. But thank you again, Omar. All right. We are back to the store.
Yeah.
We are doing some, and I am going to mute you, Omar. If there's something you want to add in your 1%, put it in the Skype chat. But we are going to do some drawings here for the Shirley stuff. We've got a couple of T-shirts, and man, I mean, like these are some. It's something about it's like if you go to anywhere and you get a free T-shirt. And it just feels like a piece of cardboard, how just like maddening that is. It's like, I'm not sure that I even want to take this. These are great shirts, just like the rest of the shirts from the breweries. Oh, and one extra thing so when I ran away, I thought that we had it in store. Oh, I am not Omar Ansari, former founder and president. So let's just get rid of that so we don't confuse anybody. We have an extra gift from Surly. That's excellent. The shirts, this frameable man cave, woman cave, she shed, Surly Brewing Twin Cities framed artwork, 2 bottles of the Darkness. We've got Darkness 18 and we've got Darkness. All right, Omar, you're coming back in. That's 18, and then we have one barrel-aged 18, right? It says bottled on 18. Anyways, we've got 2 great bottles of beer, Bombers. Thank you, Omar, for clarifying. I did not mean to put you on the spot. But we have those ready to give away. Oh, hey. Does anybody want to hear some news, some exciting news from the Growler guys in the doldrums of pandemic, lockdown, isolation, social distancing? It is the fact that, regardless of that, we are listening to feedback and we are going to be installing an outdoor patio. All right, so hold your applause, or just right now. Lots of applause because that's what we want. We are going to be installing a patio, so please, once this is all over, don't forget about us. Don't leave us hanging. Don't ghost us. Come back in, share the fun. Let's have some good times together, and let's give away some stuff. So the first ticket is 720760, and that is going to be a T-shirt. The next one will be, what do you guys want to do? Mix it up, or you want just another T-shirt next? So we want to go bomber T-shirt. You know what? I didn't hear you, so I guess I'll decide. Next, we're giving away a bomber, and this is 720639, and that is going to be the 3-headed dog bomber. And next, we'll have a T-shirt. It is 720833. I'm going to post all these in the comments on the YouTube live, and no, not on the Facebook page. Sorry, because we did ask that you be present to win. The next one is for the bomber. It's 720692 for the bomber, And then the framed art is going to be for the grand prize. All right. So, anybody? All right. So, let's see. Of course, Chris is calling me out for not knowing what the beers are in the bottles. I am sorry. I am not a dark beer connoisseur. Chris, the next time, the next live video, the next streaming event, you're the host. All right. Still love you, buddy. And actually also inform me that I am an idiot. And this one will be going back, sliding back. So unless you have spoke up and said that you were the number 6. All right. Dave Webster is the winner of the Cerberus, apparently. You spoke up just in time. So that means that the framed artwork is going to be part of the grand prize drawing. And the grand prize drawing is going to happen right now. So let's get this stuff out of the way. Let's pull in the big dogs. So we've got the framed art from Surly. We have the cooler from Toppling Goliath. And yes, I do understand that we have 2 coolers. But when you're drinking beer and you have friends, you need 2 coolers. So the grand prize drawing is going to be, where's your ticket? Do you see it in there? Point at it. I'm going to stir them up. We have no idea. There's no names on the back of these, so I have no bias whatsoever. The winner is 720633. Not 833, Damon. I'm sorry, you don't get to win twice. 720633 for the grand prize. All right. So, really, we just wanted to. This is my chance to soliloquy, I suppose. Thank you for joining us for the first virtual tasting event from the Growler guys. I know that tons of you out there had counted on Wednesday nights as a nice little get together with friends that maybe you bring to the store, that you've known your whole life, that you work with, that you live by. But sometimes it's just as much coming into the store and finding people that you'd never be friends with outside of coming to the Growler guys. And for that, we really appreciate all the community. We appreciate the support. Beyond Growler guys, obviously, there's lots of people that are struggling right now. So help where you can. Let's be better together, separately, I guess, 6 feet apart. But thanks again. Thanks so much to our sponsored breweries, Surly. I can't believe that Omar just joined us and riffed for 45 minutes. And then Ben Paddle, Toppling Goliath, Tim the head brewer, Maxwell at Ben Paddle, Derek Partlow, Peyton the brewer. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the swag. Thanks everybody for joining, and we out.